Thank you all for joining us today at the Shelby County Voter Alliance's first Lunch and Learn of 2025. My name is Claire Gardner, and I'm the Community Engagement Director for the ACLU of Tennessee, one member of a diverse alliance of nonpartisan organizations united together by the SCVA to build power in Shelby County by dramatically increasing voter engagement, registration, access to the polls, fighting for racial equity at the ballot box, and increasing voter turnout using data-driven strategies and civic education. Last year, the SCVA laid the groundwork for a more equitable democracy in Shelby County with an impressive year of impactful and strategic programs showing its steadfast commitment to the community. In 2024, the SCVA conducted over 30 voter education and registration workshops, collaborating with schools, community centers, and government institutions to provide vital resources and training to first-time voters, youth, and underrepresented communities. The SCVA also participated in over 50 voter registration events across the county that year, making voter registration accessible to a diverse range of residents by meeting people where they are, places like community festivals, health fairs, local markets, faith-based gatherings, and more. The SCVA held over 10 phone and text bank sessions throughout the election cycle in 2024 and hosted 5 poll parties at key voting locations with more than 600 participants attending. And the SCVA organized 13 postcard parties throughout the year, sending more than 15,000 personalized postcards encouraging voter turnout. In my work at the ACLU of Tennessee to fight for civil liberties and civil rights for all Tennesseans, I've seen how some lawmakers have ceaselessly worked to erode our access to the ballot box and undermine our democracy. So I know that the SCVA's steadfast commitment to working to engage voters in Shelby County and advocating for equitable voting policies at the local and state levels is just as important during the legislative session as it is during election season. That's why we're so eager to hear today from 2 of the most respected leaders at the Tennessee General Assembly to discuss how bills being debated in Nashville will impact folks in Memphis and across the state. This is a critical conversation between our elected representatives and the constituents they represent, and it's a natural extension of the staggering work the Shelby County Voter Alliance has accomplished this year. I'm honored to do this work with the SCVA, and I'm also honored to frequently collaborate with our next speaker, who in his role as our program director for Civic Tennessee serves as a veritable superhero for civic engagement advocates from the SCVA and across the state, creating community, connecting us with resources, and sharpening our strategy as we work together to protect and strengthen democracy in our state. That is Stephen Adelson, and he is joining us today from Civic Tennessee. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Claire, for that kind introduction. We are so grateful to be partners with the ACLU of Tennessee in the fight for a better Tennessee for everyone. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Lunch and Learn with the Shelby County Voter Alliance and our special guests. Like Claire said, my name is Stephen Adelson, and I'm the program director at Civic Tennessee. Civic Tennessee is a nonprofit and nonpartisan civic engagement coalition of over 40 advocacy, community, and grassroots organizations with a shared vision for the equal and equitable participation and representation of historically marginalized and underrepresented people and communities here in the state of Tennessee. We believe that centering the leadership, experiences, voices, and votes of communities of color, working and middle-class families, the LGBTQ community, people with disabilities, and young people are required for shaping state policy and electing leaders who affect their lives. And we believe that we can accomplish this by increasing civic engagement, removing barriers to voting access, building local power, and achieving a true multiracial democracy. Here at Civic Tennessee, we invest in organizations that are committed to this shared vision by coordinating local and statewide strategic partnerships, facilitating training and learning opportunities for capacity building and skills development, providing access to data, digital tools, and communication support, and fundraising to secure the resources that our partners need to accelerate positive change on the ground. At Civic Tennessee, we are honored to be a trusted partner and supporter of the Shelby County Voter Alliance, a powerful group of movement leaders who exemplify what it means to advocate tirelessly in the pursuit of equity and justice for the people living in West Tennessee. Over the years, our work together has flourished. From registering thousands of new voters in high schools, at naturalization ceremonies, and even at the Memphis Zoo, hosting election hubs where we support tens of thousands of voters every election day by answering their questions, providing rides to the polls, and access to interpreters, to forging strong partnerships with local government offices, the Shelby County Election Commission, the National Civil Rights Museum, and the Memphis Grizzlies that bring attention to the issues that affect people's everyday lives. That's a lot, right? And that doesn't even cover the Shelby County Voter Alliance's commitments to efforts to protect our public schools, back against attacks on our immigrant communities, eliminate inequitable tax burdens, ensure access to affordable housing and gainful employment, and ultimately create a world where everyone can thrive and live in their full dignity. So today's Lunch and Learn is incredibly important. With this year's legislative session underway, a special session called for next week, and hundreds of bills already introduced that will either help or harm our communities, today's Lunch and Learn is a chance for us to hear from two of our revered state leaders about what they see as the challenges and opportunities ahead of us, and to learn more about the ways that we can advocate for what is in the best interests of everyone and not a select few. Thank you all again so much for joining us today, for showing up to learn. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my dear friend, Ian Randolph, who will continue with today's program.
Hello, all. I am so happy to see all of you all here. Let me adjust my camera so that you can see me as well. Just a moment. All right. So let's get started. Uh, I'm going to take a point of privilege and address some things that have been on my mind. I'll only take about a minute to do this, and then we'll dive into the questions that have been submitted to us. Things have changed since we did our last Lunch and Learn. And to that, I have a couple of questions that I think will be relevant as we move into the 2026 election season. So the first thing that I want to say, and this is a serious issue, what are we going to do when we see or experience Proud Boys at our polling sites next year? That needs to be something that we start planning for. What are you going to do when we have Oath Keepers show up at your house because of your activism? That's something that we need to start thinking about. We have to continue the fight for our voting rights. We have to continue to fight against voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement. We have to continue to fight against racism and misogyny. And finally, we have to continue to fight for the poor. And finally, we have to continue to fight for ourselves. It's time to do more than just like and subscribe. We can't keep doing that and think we're doing something. It's time to start getting into good trouble again. So after saying that, I'm going to move into the question and answer part of our Lunch and Learn today. So we have two incredible dynamic women joining us today. I've known them for quite some time. If we can get Senator Akbari on the screen too. While we work on that, I'm going to let Karen Camper, Leader Camper, introduce herself.
Oh, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ian, and thank you for those words, starting us off, both ACLU, Civic Tennessee, and you, in terms of where we are and where we're going. Just a little bit about me, because I don't want to eat up all the time with that, but, I'm just a retired Army veteran, came home working in the community, volunteering for my community, started a nonprofit organization working with young children that wanted to be in the music business, and from that, got involved in, lobbying city council about things that was important in my community, and very active in the party, and eventually decided to run for office. And I didn't, look, hey, Didn't get it the first time, but I learned so much that first time that even though you don't win that first time, people are watching you. And so I eventually was appointed to this seat and has since been here since 2008 and have risen up in leadership as the House Minority Leader now, history making, first woman, first Black to achieve this position. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, the other dynamic, incredible woman we have on the line is Senator Akbari. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, Ian, and hey, Leader Camper. My name is Ramesh Akbari. I was born and raised in Memphis. I am an attorney by trade. Worked with my family business for a long time. Ended up running for office because I was being mentored by the late, great Representative Barbara Cooper. Public service was something I was interested in at a very young age. I was one of those weirdo kids that, wanted to be involved and saw other elected officials and thought this was the best way to make a difference.
Yeah.
In the General Assembly, I serve as the Senate Minority Leader. I served in the House along with Leader Camper for 5 years, and this is like, I think my 7th year in the Senate, 6th year in the Senate. Time flies when you're getting your butt kicked. But I serve on the Education Committee. I'm the second vice chair, the Commerce Committee, the Ethics Committee, and the Calendar Committee. And, this is going to be a wild ride, so buckle up.
All right, we're going to move into our question and answer period. Oh, I forgot. I heard that there are some students that are watching our broadcast from class today. So for those students that may be watching, welcome, and I hope you learned something from today's Lunch and Learn. Our Lunch and Learns are meant to be an educational experience as well. So our first question to each of you, and I have 13 questions I want to get to, so please be as brief as possible. What is the role of a senator? What is the role of a representative? And what are the two legislative bodies responsible for? I'll lead off with Senator Akbari.
Alrighty, so the role of the General Assembly, our only constitutional duty is to pass a state budget. That budget funds education, public safety, healthcare, all sorts of things. I'm a state senator. We represent about 180,000 people. There are 33 districts across the state of Tennessee. I represent Senate District 29. Our goal is to move legislation concurrently along with the House. We propose legislation affecting all aspects of life. Our General Assembly meets starting the second Tuesday of every January until we finish, which is usually the end of April, beginning of May, depending on the subject matter. And last thing I'll say is we are allegedly a part-time legislature. So,
All right, Representative.
To clearly state is most members, including the students that are, most citizens, including the students that's watching, clearly understand local government. The mayor, city council, they clearly understand the federal government, the president, Congress, Supreme Court. What we don't have a real appreciation or deep appreciation of is state government. The governor who proposes legislation that affect your very life. Senators, representatives who propose legislation that affect your very everyday life. So I am excited that we have some students listening. We have people logged on to learn more about how state government informs their life, shape their life, and impact their life. We propose and pass bills every year up here, thousands of them, that shape public policy for this state, from healthcare, as she mentioned before, which is our constitutional duty. She's saying about a balanced budget, but from bills that are, around teachers, around students. We've had students come up and propose legislation themselves based on their experience. So, we do a lot here that most people don't appreciate and understand. So I'm excited that we get an opportunity to share more about what happens here in the State House.
The next question kind of impacts everybody that's on this call. As I informed you during our note session back and forth, the majority of the people that are affiliated with the Shelby County Voter Alliance are nonprofits, 501c3s. We're unions, we are churches. We are the Divine Nine. So we come to Nashville to lobby. So the next question is, how do the new House and Senate rules impact you, and how do they impact our ability to lobby and advocate in the state legislature?
Well, let me start with that, since it's really the House whose rules has changed. The Senate rules are the same, and oftentimes, because the House sets some very stringent rules, it in a way almost create two unequal co-branches within the General Assembly. So some of the rules that changed this year that is going to impact people coming up like yourself. We changed our gallery rules, where if you remember last year, they changed that only you had to have a ticket to get in the gallery. But this year you're going to have to register. You're going to have to go online. You're going to have to reserve a seat, kind of like if you're going to a theater or something. Reserve a seat. They'll email you back, and you'll get a chance to see your ticket, and you get to go and sit in your assigned seat. Not everybody have an email. Not every older person like my mom and others that want to come here for their to see their government in action are going to be able to do that. So it's restrictive in that nature. Secondly, we propose rules, which we all voted against, that limit the number of bills that we can file. A lot of the things that we file come out of the community, organizations just like the one that the Voter Alliance represent. And now, when I got here, it was unlimited, and then we went to 15. Now we're going from 12 to 10. The Senate is still unlimited. So it's rules like that that are going to affect you. Additionally, the days on the Hill are very important. You all coming up every year is very important. Not only one, to see your government at work, but also get a chance to testify, be in our committee rooms, seeing the bills as they're being debated, and visiting your members. None of that has really changed. You still can come in and you still can do that. What's being restrictive is you have to file beforehand if you want to talk. If you want to speak before a committee, you got to file beforehand, and there's new forms and things like that. They want to read what you're going to say and all of this kind of stuff. So the House is being very restrictive in nature. But I'm saying, don't let that affect you all's advocacy. I'm saying, look at the rules, try to figure a way to abide by them, but still achieve what you're trying to do when you come up here to see us, and we'll help you navigate that.
I'm going to interject for just a second. If there are, let's say, 66 people on the other side that can submit bills, and there are 20, 34 people on another side that can submit bills, doesn't that mean that the side with the most people can submit the most bills during the session?
Yes, and that's in fact what's true. By reducing the number of bills, in this case, we have 75 on the other side. We have 24 on our side. We've been reduced to 12 per member. Now, on the other side, they all have 12, but it's 12 times 75. And then each committee chair, which they have all of the committees, all 13 committees, they get an additional 5. And they chair all the subcommittees, which means they get an additional 2. So the only people who benefit in this situation is the supermajority. The minority is the one that's damaged the most, in my opinion. We're hurt the most because we're not able to, at an equitable level, get our message out, get our ideas looked at, passed, voted on. So yes, we're being tremendously impacted by it. I mean, if you add the numbers up, you're in the thousands, and we're like less than 300.
All right. What are some of this is to each of you all, what are some of your legislative concerns for this session? If you would, if there are bill numbers attached to your concerns, please let us know, because we have the ability to track that legislation as it moves through the House and the Senate. So if you have bill numbers, please let us know. Put those in the chat. That would be helpful. And what kind of strategies do you all use to move your legislation? And finally, to help us lobby uh, with your counterparts, what processes and support systems do they have in place to move their legislation?
Okay, I can jump in. First, I'll tell you most of the bills that we're concerned about have not yet been filed. The bill filing deadline is February the 6th. We were only in session for 3 days, our organizational session. A lot of people have filed bills, so you know House Bill and Senate Bill 1. That is the governor's voucher program. That is obviously something we're significantly concerned with. We will start a special session on February the 27th. Today, the governor released some of the details related to immigration. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. They are horrific. It would allow, let's see, I'm going to quickly read through this. It's trying to align with the Trump administration. And so it will establish a centralized immigration enforcement division within the Department of Safety to ensure efficient resource allocation and effective enforcement of immigration laws. And they will coordinate directly with the Trump administration on federal immigration policies and implementation. Another one makes it more difficult for people to get state issued IDs. It restricts the eligibility for state issued IDs to US citizens, lawful permanent residents, and individuals with federal authorization for a specific period. They're going to put visible markers on temporary licenses issued to non citizens and mandate proof of citizenship for renewal or reinstatement. They will create, this is truly heinous, a Class E felony offense for local officials who adopt or maintain sanctuary city policies in violation of state law, a Class E felony. Okay. They will incentivize local governments to participate in the enforcement of federal immigration policies, specifically to enter into agreements with federal authorities under the 287G program to assist with immigration law enforcement, detention, and removal. It will create the Immigration Enforcement Grant Program, which allocates funding for local governments to assist with training law enforcement officers, operational expenses, and purchasing equipment to support federal and state immigration policies. And then that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's something that will be addressed in our special session, as well as funding for these hurricane ravaged areas, which obviously we support. But I think you're going to see more of the same. We had a Justice Department that protected us at the federal level. We had a Biden administration that gave us tools and support so that we could combat some of the, awful pieces of legislation happening here. And we don't have that anymore. A lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programming have been eliminated immediately. A lot of the supports for those who are undocumented, those who English is not their first language, has been eliminated. A lot of the protections for the LGBTQ community eliminated through executive order. I mean, the fact that this administration thinks that they can eliminate birthright citizenship through executive order. Now, when I was a freshman in the legislature, I was sitting in the education committee, so that was 12 years ago, and a member of the Republican Party tried to not suggest, outright said that we should get rid of birthright citizenship. So I anticipate someone on a state level will try and push that. Just know that the safety net is gone to a certain degree. Like, we're going to fight as hard as we can. We're going to try and get things on the record. That's a lot of what we do, so that if there is a legal challenge, folks will be successful. But just anticipate things that are going to be really restrictive for immigrants, for undocumented folks, that are going to be really restrictive for the LGBTQ community. There may be some punitive things that folks are going to look at in education. I know in Memphis, with the situation in Memphis Shelby County schools, a lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to take over the schools. I'm going to tell you something. They have been threatening to take over Memphis Shelby County schools and proposing legislation since I got to the General Assembly. So this is again going to be one of those things where we try and fight for local control. Local control is quickly becoming a unicorn, and that I think you expect other legislation like that. As far as our strategy, Leader Camper and I are pretty good about building relationships across the aisle. We know that our numbers are limited. Out of 33 members in the Senate, I only have six Democrats, five other colleagues. I'm in the House. They have what, 25 out of 99. Every committee I sit, 24 out of 99. Every committee I sit on, I am the only Democrat on that committee. I cannot, so no committee for the most part, there's a few that have two Democrats in the House and Senate are guaranteed a motion in a second. As far as y'all's strategy is concerned, I think that you have to keep doing what you're doing. You have to keep showing up, always be succinct, I say. Talking points are great. Handouts with, not a lot of information are great. And also work on building relationships when we're not in session. When we're in session, I might have 15 appointments in one day, and I'm not kidding. And that doesn't include committee meetings. So imagine if you are one of 15. But if you've built relationships over time, you've met with folks when the legislature's not meeting, that does make a difference. And the last thing I'll say as far as strategy for us to pass our legislation, again, we look for points of commonality, right? For the most part, people want safe communities. They want great public schools. They want to be able to have a job or a career and be able to pay their bills, and they want to be able to go to the doctor if they're sick. And so we try and find some sort of synergy within those lanes. It's hard. It's getting harder and harder. When I first got to the General Assembly, I was very successful passing pro public school legislation and education and criminal justice reform legislation. A lot of those pathways, those bridges don't exist anymore. One, you have a different type of person that's being elected. It's usually a single issue. They don't know how to govern, they know how to fight. And as far as the tool that the majority party has, they have the majority. So they have the majority. A lot of times when I was a House member, they would pass bills out of committee. You didn't even, if you were in the majority party, you didn't even have to present it. And they just passed it out. And then, of course, they would expect the Senate to kill it. So, because if it was a truly bad bill, but that's what they have. They have the majority. They have more access to getting things in the budget. It is different when you can get a motion and second and count your votes. When you are a Democrat or in the superminority, you have every bill you pass has to be bipartisan, every single one. And so I think that's the starkest difference, I think, in our strategies.
What I'm encouraging organizations like you all to do is to be more proactive in the things you want us fighting for. We're going to be on the defense against a lot of the stuff that they're proposing. But what bills would you like for us to propose? What are the things that you're dealing with that you know from your experience, ACLU, Civic Tennessee? What is it that you all have been informed on your polls and all of the data that you have that you can give to us as legislation we could propose to try to protect the issues that you're concerned about. So I'm saying we need to get in front of the issue so that we're not just up here defending against issues, which we're going to do. That's the role of the minority, is to defend for these crazy bills and issues and things that we're faced with. But at the same time, we need to be thinking about what is it we want done? What is it the community is saying needs to be done? And so the more you all can help us with that, then we can put that in, particularly with this reduction in bills on the Senate, on the House side. We have got to be strategic in the things that we're putting out there and fighting for, and make sure that when we do, you all are there to help advocate for these bills and for these changes that you all want to see.
When did you say the session picks back up again? I heard February 6th is the filing deadline.
January 27th, and the filing deadline is February the 6th for the House and the Senate. So January 27th, the Senate will resume at 3 p.m. regular session. We will quickly adjourn for a special session. They're just waiting for the governor to issue the formal call so we can do it. We couldn't set it for the calendar until he issued that, and he hadn't issued it by the time we adjourned last week.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so we go in at 2:00 on the 27th. The February 6th date is the bill filing deadline for regular session. For the special session, if people have ideas based on what she just went over, litany of stuff that in the immigration press release they put out, but around vouchers that we know is going to come out, Hurricane Helene victims that's going to come up. If you have ideas, concept bills that you want filed for that, you need to get it to us at least by 4:00 on Friday in order for us to file it so that it can be heard on Monday when we come back for special session, so that they can pass on first consideration in order to get it to a committee. So if it's something you want for special session, that needs to be done at least by Friday. We need to have that turned in Friday at 4 o'clock. I don't know. The Senate got their rules, House got their rules,
No,
but I know.
yeah, Senate, we don't have a date. They were
I
like
know.
the bill filing deadline is regular.
Yeah.
It's just like a regular session. But the thing
Yeah.
is, it won't be heard. If it's not ready for
Right.
first reading, it won't be heard.
It won't be heard. So
And
I'm
I'll
saying,
tell you, a part of our strategy, we're kind of toying around with it, is to play defense because we think that a lot of this special session is a sham anyway, as opposed to offense. So
yeah.
All right, we are going to get into that if we can make it through our questions.
Oh,
The next question that we have is, despite the hyper-partisan and polarized environment that we live in right now, how can we engage in meaningful and productive bipartisan conversations about issues that matter most? Some of the issues that came up when we were soliciting questions in that vein were around housing, the freezing temperatures, taxes, things like that.
yeah. Well, I think that all of your organizations are in a position to hold these conversations across. I mean, you're nonpartisan to begin with. You're nonprofit, you're nonpartisan. You just got to convene and hold these conversations with people. The beauty I feel that the senator and I have is, over the years we've both been here, we've built relationships across the aisle in our committee system that are still lasting now. And we've kind of come up in leadership together with some of the same people that we were, before we were ever in leadership. We built these relationships over the years. And we build relations and continue to cultivate them when we're not in session. And so her point about you all meeting with people outside of session is a very relevant one. And that's how you build this rapport to get to this bipartisan nature of passing bills and passing public policy that we all agree on. So I think it's around cultivating, reaching out, olive branch, whatever word you want to say, to someone that see things differently from you, and holding real, open, honest conversations about it. And I know you all do that very well. And I just say continue with that strategy. Just got to do it the more.
Thank you. The next question, let me preface it with this. For those of you all who are new to the Shelby County Voter Alliance and the things that we do, our mission is to increase voter turnout within Shelby County, working with other Shelby County organizations to build power. And we increase voter turnout using data-driven strategies and civic education. Today's Lunch and Learn is part of our civic education mission. Now, people kind of wonder, well, what would the Voter Alliance be talking about certain things for? Or what would the Voter Alliance be involved in certain things? The Voter Alliance touches everything that has something to do with voting. We worked with the city in 2023 on the city's redistricting process, all the way down to this past election. People call us for rides to the polls, and we touch everything in between. So my next two questions are around that. What is happening from a state level with our district attorney? What is happening from a state level with our school board? Because we elected those people. And the folks in Nashville, not y'all, have a tendency to say, well, those people in Memphis and Shelby County don't know what they're doing. So even though they voted, we need to go down to Memphis and get rid of the DA because we don't like what he's doing. We need to take over the school board because we don't like what they doing. We don't like the decisions that the Memphis people have made around who they can hire in their police department or their fire department. So we're going to overturn that. It's a history there. So can you please address how the state is looking at our district attorney and what we can do to protect our vote, and how the state is looking at our Memphis and Shelby County school system and how we can protect our voting rights when we put people into power?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. The folks in Nashville and a lot of them represent districts in Shelby County want to get rid of elected officials because they can't win those seats. DA Mulroy has been under attack from Senator Brent Taylor probably since Brent got there. And consistently, there's been kind of this back and forth blaming Mulroy for crime, blaming Mulroy for how bail and bond is set, pretty much blaming Mulroy for everything. I do believe that a resolution will be filed in the Senate. It will probably go to committee. I do not think that it will move forward. It's unprecedented to remove a district attorney. The only district attorney that have been considered for removal by the General Assembly are those who were convicted of crimes. There's been no financial, um, malfeasance. There's been no significant or any that I know of breaking or non-enforcing of state law. And so this really is just a difference in politics, not policy. So I think it's unfortunate because we need our DA to be focused on doing his job as opposed to defending himself to keep his job. As far as the school board, it is unconstitutional, 100%, to remove them from office, not to remove them from office, but to replace them or to add other appointed officials to that school board. I anticipate if anything like that were to pass, it will be tied up in litigation forever. Okay. Um, it's unfortunate. I remember talking to one of my colleagues and I said, listen, why are you guys trying to take away local control? Because they do it to Memphis and Nashville, Chattanooga and Knoxville. They do it to our blue cities. And they said, well, I said, you wouldn't want the federal government to do that to you, to the state. And the response was, the states created the federal government and the states created the cities. So apparently the states should run everything, which is, a level of insane absurdness. So advice to y'all is just to keep showing up again. I know I keep saying that, but it means something. It means something, and build coalitions, right? Like I know there were some Republican DAs who wrote letters of support for Mulroy. There have been some Republican members who have said, listen, enough is enough. Let's get focused on what's important. I know that this might be controversial, but build relationships with members of the business community.
Yeah.
Every aspect needs to speak up and to say something. And that's how I think you'll be the most successful. I will also say understand who you're talking to, right? And understand how people respond and understand how you respond. If someone comes at you, attacking you, is that someone that you're going to respond to? Is that someone you're going to want to work with? But if someone comes at you and says, hey, we both agree on a mutual issue, or we may not agree on this issue, but we know that we want Memphis to thrive, or whatever approach you take, it makes a difference. And certainly I've had to do that because I have been so frustrated at certain moments where I'm just like, why are we talking about this still? Why do we have to live in this atmosphere of fear that people will come in and swoop in and change how we govern on a local level when we need to focus on addressing the root causes of crime, the root causes of our education system not being as successful as we'd like it to be, the root cause of poverty, the root cause of underemployment and unemployment. Instead, we're too busy fighting about politics and not policy.
That's enough said, to be honest. You want to get to some more questions? She's right. She's right.
All right. The next question is that we saw in the last session laws passed penalizing organizations that have people with felonies that register someone to vote and a law that doesn't allow pre-filled voter registration forms, and also laws passed that have made it more difficult for our brothers and sisters that have felonies to get their rights restored. So do you anticipate that there will be any bills this session that will actually expand voting access? And to that, I want to say that the Shelby County Voter Alliance worked real hard back in 2022 to get a streamlined process to help our felons get their voting rights restored. We stopped for a while because of the change in the law, but then we picked back up on that. So we are very concerned about our brothers and sisters who have been excluded from participating in voting. And finally, I do tons of voter registration. And for those on the call, voter registration does not stop. We were out this weekend at the National Civil Rights Museum with a table doing voter registration. And I had in the past felons come with me to expungement clinics because I can't talk to felons like another felon can. That were helping me do voter registration. Now they can't come because I'll get in trouble if somebody finds out I have felons helping me do voter registration. So I'm gonna let you all answer that so we can stay on time.
I would say if you look at the history of this supermajority, all they've done is voter suppression type bills. So to expect that they're going to do anything to expand is just unrealistic to even expect. Now, our members haven't filed all their bills yet. We're still formulating concepts, ideas. So if there are any bills filed, I'm sure it'll be from our side of the aisle. It's unfortunate that at this point in time in our history, that we're even talking about suppressing the vote. All the things King fought for, and we just celebrated his birthday the other day. All the things John Lewis fought for, it's unconscionable to me that we're still talking about suppressing the vote. But that's a sign of the times with the people that's in leadership on the supermajority. And so the Republican supermajority realize that it's difficult for them to get elected, particularly in blue areas. So what do? They suppress the vote. Now, we fight it, but we don't have the numbers to kill those bills. Hopefully, and I agree with you on the streamlining, that was a great initiative. I think it came out of the alliance. We'll continue to file those bills, I'm sure, in our minority status, but it'll be difficult to get them passed. But we would like for you all to still come up and be heard. We'd like for you all to still lobby on the other side to say, hey, this is why you need to do this. Have people who have been affected by it to come up personally and say, this is what it has done for me. This is how it's affected my life. Humanize it for them. And maybe that can help us get some of this stuff through. But it's sad, to say the least, that they want to continue to suppress the vote. But I think we'll see more of that from them, and you'll see us trying to propose more to give, we want unlimited access to the ballot box. Right. So you'll see us.
And I'll say something real quick.
Yeah.
So Karen, in reference to what Mark Gowen's opinion last year around those returning citizens who do not have access to be able to get guns. Ridiculous. The Department of Justice was investigating it, obviously, with the new administration. I don't anticipate any action. However, we are working on, I know that the majority party has suggested a solution that Representative Hulsey is carrying in the House, but I don't think that that's the one we want to go with. So my office is working with Free Hearts, and we will be reaching out to Leader Camper's office with a piece of legislation, hopefully that will try and fix this, because unfortunately we are in a posture of the state where elected officials are choosing their voters instead of voters choosing their elected officials.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Free Hearts is a partner of the Shelby County Voter Alliance, And Jada was supposed to be on this call today as a viewer. Next question.
I have a meeting with them at 4 o'clock today.
Well, tell them Ian said hi. The next question that we want to move on to is, what strategies do you recommend to increase voter turnout and engage underrepresented communities in the political process? Having said that, our goal is to increase voter participation. That's the Shelby County Voter Alliance's goal. Now, we had less participation in this cycle. In Tennessee, 80% of the people do not vote. That's on average. You cannot gerrymander a governor's seat. You cannot gerrymander our federal senator seats. What it will take is turnout and people realizing that they need to start voting in their best interest. So what do you all suggest that we do to engage more of our citizens and help increase voter turnout?
Well, it's going to take time and resources because it's not enough to say your ancestors died for this. It's not enough to say this is your civic duty. You have to give people an actual reason why it personally impacts them, why they should vote. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of people. When I first ran for office, I remember CNN had done this big story about the Clementine apartments and how awful it was, and the people there were all gang related. So of course, my mom and I went there and campaigned during the pickup time for the school bus that early in the morning. And I talked to so many folks who were not registered to vote, and they were eligible. And the reason why they said it, they were like, well, it doesn't make a difference. Or if they were registered to vote, they didn't want to go because they said, nothing about my life has changed. I think a lot of people felt, in the post-Obama era, they felt like, well, they expected a savior. And I'm like, he's just a man, and he has to have Congress work with him. So I think I talked to a woman. It was so crazy. She was dropping her kids off for the bus, but she had a backpack on as well. And I said, well, you're a student. She said, yeah. I said, well, you do get financial aid? She said, yeah. I said, are you on TANF? Do you get food stamps? Yeah. I said, well, guess what? The elected officials in Nashville determine how much money you get to take home. It's a big deal. It makes a difference. And so I think we converted her. And so, well, we did because she filled out the form and registered to vote. And so I think that's it's gonna take. And I'm hoping, I mean, you hate to say you hope that I don't want things to get so bad that people feel like they have to vote. But I think that it's not enough what we've been doing. And we need something different and we need something new. We need elected officials who run for office to do what they say they're going to do, and not to say things that they're going to do that they know they can't do, right? We need people who are qualified, not just because they want a job, but because they want to make a difference and they have the skill set to do it. And we need to engage people before the election. And I'll tell you, Leader Camper and I have events all the time. People do not show up, okay? And it's because they got a lot going on. You trying to get from surviving to thriving. You trying to take care of your kids. You trying to work multiple jobs. Oh yes, now I'm going to go sit in a policy session from some elected official who I think is some fat cat in Nashville making all this money, which by the way, we do not at all. But it's
No,
it's
we
it's
don't.
hard. Yeah, it's hard. So I'm open. We don't have the answers. We're trying because we know that Tennessee is one of the worst states in voter turnout. That if we actually rose up and voted in the numbers that we have, it would make a difference. But we're grasping just as much as y'all are.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
say
we
one
need.
more thing. You got to
Oh, go
meet
ahead.
people
Yeah,
where they are. You got to meet
that's
people
it.
where they are.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just about to say you got to meet people where they are. I kind of changed the way I I went from doing my town halls that we used to do that she talked about where people don't come. You get 3 or 4 people that are really invested in the community that show up to my state to the streets concept, where people can understand more about state government and what state government means to them. And once people get there and learn about it, they understand more about why they need to vote and why they need people in office to make sure that the things that they need are protected, cared for, expanded, and things like that. So I do think we need to do things a little bit different. And I think we need to just engage people all the time, not just what people believe is in an election season. That the senator was saying takes time, money, resources. It's got to be 12 months out of the year, every year, and people on the ground knocking on doors, talking to people, and explaining to them the value that they both have and the impact it can have on their life. And I don't think we do enough of that because it do take time, money, resources. Catherine Bowers years ago had something that she called I think it was the voter brigade. And it was a brigade of people that came together. And I remember getting my little brigade card. I was so excited to get it. And we go out in those precincts, those ward and precincts, and we knock on doors and we talk to people. We got to get back to different tactics of reaching people. And I realized, we're in a, cell phone world. People been on cell phones since they've been in the world. We got to find different creative ways to reach people, keep their attention, and educate them.
All right, thank you for that. Just as a heads up, I think we'll end at 12:05 because we need to give Yelani time to do our ending. With that said, we look forward to doing another Lunch and Learn next month because we had questions about how come we can't have stuff on a monthly basis so we can learn about things. We try to do that. We found that Zoom is the most effective method because getting people to come out of their houses doesn't always work. As you said, it's hard to get people to show up to stuff. So like I said, we do engage in civic education all the time. I want to end on this pressing question because I'm sure I'll get lit up if I don't ask it. Why ain't the state sending the money to TSU? 1 minute.
Akbari.
Okay, so I've been working with this for a while. The $2.1 billion that the federal government said was likely owed to Tennessee State University, there was a follow-up letter from the federal government as the Biden administration was leaving. They have suggested that, there's a possibility that might be not be the correct number. It's in that range. So they would like states to establish their own state committee to investigate and see exactly what funds are owed. Representative Harold Love has already drafted that legislation and is getting some good support from it. Now, the $540 million that the committee Representative Harold Love was able to put together, that money was determined by the state and federal resources to say those are matching land grant funds that were owed to Tennessee State University. That is different from the 2.1 billion. The 2.1 billion is based on per pupil allotment, okay? Now, the 541 billion, the state of Tennessee has already given 250 million to TSU. It was supposed to go towards academic buildings. The second half, which is about 290 million or so, or 80 million, was supposed to go towards academic programming. They can't give them the money for the programming if they haven't spent the money for the buildings, which they had not spent. So some of that money was used to help float TSU during their recent financial crisis. What we're advocating for is for that money to be repurposed to again help Tennessee State with their financial infrastructure and rebuilding their coffers since they are completely, all of their reserves were spent. And so that's what we're looking at. So once that happens, it gets stabilized, they have a full-time president, then we will advocate or hope that the governor on his way out will give the other half of that money, that $280 million. But trust me, we are fighting for it. A lot of, a lot of things are floating in the community that might not necessarily be true, but just know there's a process to get there. And shockingly, I know this is going to shock everybody, Tennessee is way more ahead than other southern states and giving matching land grant funds. We are one of the only states that actually gives a 1-to-1 match, and the Tennessee Higher Education Commission has recommended doing a 2-to-1 match now for those funds. Secondly, we are the only state that has acknowledged that arrearages were owed to our public HBCU and began the process to pay them. So I know it's very emotional. It's historically underfunded, but the pathway forward is doable. We just need folks to band together and trust. I'm gonna tell you, Harold Moses Love Jr. eats, breathes, and sleeps Tennessee State University, and has worked tirelessly along with Charlene Oliver in the Senate and the Tennessee Black Caucus. So just know we're fighting. We're fighting constantly.
That was good.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for coming out today. Can I get a commitment from you all to come back maybe in March or late February
Yeah.
to do another
For
lunch with me?
sure.
All
We'll
right.
do it live from the Capitol.
That would
Oh
be
yeah.
wonderful. In closing out this session or this particular section of our Lunch and Learn, again, I want to remind people that you cannot gerrymander the governor's seat. You cannot gerrymander our federal Senate seats. The census is coming up and the redistricting process will start right after. We can't wait till 2028 and 2029 to start preparing for that. We got to start playing chess and stop playing checkers and look out for our future. So with that said, that's going to end this portion of our lunch with the leaders. And Yeleni, please come and close us out. I enjoyed seeing all of you beautiful people today.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you to everybody for joining us today and being part of this important conversation. The leaders, thank you so much for taking the time and for your commitment to coming back and joining us. Your time and energy are deeply appreciated, and it's very inspiring to see so many of you engaging with the work we're doing. And as Ian said, now is the time to take action. If you're inspired by what you've learned today and you want to be part of this movement to increase voter turnout, engage communities, and build a stronger democracy, these are ways you can get involved. You can visit our volunteer page at shelbyvoter.org to learn more about other ways you can contribute, whether it's voter registration drives, community workshops, or simply spreading the word. Every effort makes a difference. And I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for those of you that want to join our volunteer list. I just dropped that in the chat. It's an interest form, and we will happily get back to you. And you'll be receiving notifications when we have events coming up. Also, if you're part of an organization or know someone who would like to partner with us, we'd love to connect. We actually have our very first SCVA annual convening, and that'll take place on February 8th. So if you're part of an organization and you'd like to join us, we are welcoming new partners at the moment. Together we can achieve even greater impact. And again, I want to thank you for being here and for caring about your community and our democracy. Remember that the work we do today will create a lasting change for tomorrow. So let's get out there, do the work, make a difference, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events, at our future Lunch and Learn. So take care and have a wonderful day.
Stay on, Yeleni.